Hey, what's going on? So I got another video for you all today, and the video is titled "The Biggest Lie in Human History." And it gets to the point that lie is that there is no God, and the Bible says that a fool says in their heart there is no God. And I'm going to explain how that is more relevant in today's world than we can't even imagine. Now, the first thing I'm gonna bring up is that I brought up epistemology before, but I'm gonna bring up the obvious. See, we let an authoritative governing body determine our origin and define our existence. Now, what do they do? What do they define our existence based on? Or by random nothingness, moving in ways that make no sense, that have no purpose, and make our life of no value. Why do they do this? Well, they do this so they can create a world of subjective relativism, where any corrupt, oppressive system can be constructed in a lie, where they basically make the rules and they determine what's in our best interest to serve their own agenda. And we see this in everything we do. If we let the going worldview be that we are just random biological accidents, that we are unintelligent chemical reactions without rhyme or reason, just floating around in reality, just basically bumping off each other, then they can design their own script and create their own narrative about what's to determine what's important, what's valuable, and now we're understanding how we're being programmed and indoctrinated via educational systems and media, how people are actually determining reality based on these imaginative constructs from these institutions. And a lot of people, they fail to realize that, you know, they discredit God because they don't understand God, but you have to be God to know God. And so our best position is to obey God. And how do we obey God? A God we can't see. Well, he reveals himself from his creation. Romans 120 says that, and they're clearly, the invisible things of God from the beginning in the creation of the world are clearly seen from his creation, from the things that are made, starting with us. We are the greatest evidence for God. How our mind works, the things that we long for, love, justice, logic, compassion, mercy, these things are consciousness. They're not in any evolutionary framework. These are things that are based on our spiritual design. So again, I'm gonna reiterate the lie, and that is that there is no God. Basically, the narrative is that we are a result of random, unintelligent, accidental processes. Now, let's ask ourselves why. Why would the world hide God? You would think that knowing our Creator, knowing our purpose, will give our lives more meaning, will allow us to be more efficient, to increase the value of life. But it's actually to the very contrary that they hide God. See, the world hides God, so people don't know their true value, identity, and purpose. And because if we did, it will expose all the corruption and wicked ways and lies that this world uses to extort, control, and manipulate us to a higher agenda, to basically take advantage of us by our own human nature. And our human nature is basically the cause of all the problems that we experience, not just in our individual personal lives and our personal struggles and failures, but actually is what we experience when we interact with each other and interact with technology we create, how we are always out of balance with our surroundings, with our environment, and we have unforeseen consequences that almost make whatever we create not even worth the effort. And if here's the issue: if we believe the origin lie as the foundation, we will believe every lie that is built on that foundation. You know, our very lives having value hinges on our origin. You know, if we believe that our origin is from nothing and that we are just a random, chaotic biological accident, well, then all the evils that we hate, I have a few listed here: abortion, euthanasia, eugenics, genocide, rape, murder, etc. All of these things that we know are terrible things, all of a sudden become tools used to push agendas, where the moral fabric of our humanity has been destroyed and replaced by a selfish, sinister desire to have a superficial happiness and to gain materials that will just distract us from our purpose and cause us to waste our lives. So, I'm going to do my best to break this down. Now, we have to understand that we are spirit. Our flesh is a covering. You know, we're made in the image of our Creator, who is also a spirit, so that gives us infinite value. Our bodies are just designed that our spirit works through this flesh to allow us to basically exist in the material world. That's the whole reason of our flesh. You know, we're simple vessels that are animated by our souls. Believing we are animals, evolution, makes every behavior justified based on predetermined chemical reactions to which suffering, violence, and all evils we hate will eventually be excused or seen as normal. Now that's the issue, because people want to redefine love and say love is acceptance, love is tolerance, but we don't tolerate things that cause negative consequences. So we have to be honest about what the source of our problems are and why they are bad. We have an objective response from evil that lets us know that it's detrimental for us. Jesus Christ of the Bible said that wisdom is justified of her children. So the results of something is proven, or the worth of something is proven by its results. So we have a self-testing mechanism to determine our intrinsic compass of good and evil. Now, I'm gonna break down this science for a bit. I got my little material here. Now, here's the problem with the so-called science, you know, and I'm going to really break this down now, and scientists. Now, for those who believe in science, there's one issue with what we call science, that it doesn't take an account of morality, the fact that it doesn't have to be based on truth. If you take the scientific method, which means that we're looking at what we observe and is testable and repeatable in an experiment, well, first of all, our observation doesn't have to be is one thing, but what we describe it as or what we make it as is another. You know, I can say I'm looking at a car, but nothing's stopping me from lying and saying it's an airplane if I have an agenda where it being an airplane is more beneficial. And see, this is where the world we live in, where knowledge and the source of knowledge, the epistemology of knowledge, is not questioned. And people don't realize that you're trusting someone based on what someone else with a little bit more authority to define something said as a fact, without it being a self-evident proven fact. You know, morality is not an innate attribute of scientists, i.e. they lie, they deceive, they frame evidence for many reasons, and we got many cases in life that prove just that. Now, here's a Bible verse that's going to blow your mind. Most people haven't even read this. This is 1 Timothy 6:20-21. It says, "O Timothy, guard that deposit entrusted to you. Avoid irrelevant babbling and contradictions of what is falsely called knowledge. For by professing it, some have swerved from the faith. That's the, I think, the English Standard Version. Now, to believe the Big Bang Theory and evolution, you have to have faith in them. You have to have faith. Those are religions. They're not proven. You're taking these theories based on someone who cannot prove, who have never observed it, but have just compiled a bunch of false evidence from a place of authority to use as a source, as a standard to say whether you're right or wrong. And they made sure it's something that you cannot test or observe yourself. You would think that science would be based on things that people can see, go back and test themselves. See, the Bible tells us to test the spirit by the spirit and to prove all things. Science doesn't even tell you that. Science wants you to assume that what it says makes sense, even if you don't understand it. You're just taking it based on the fact that it's coming through a medium of authority. You know, let's take the second law of thermodynamics, for example, which basically talks about entropy. That everything is in a state of decay. The energy is always running down. Well, in evolution, the energy has to increase to cause the kind of changes that scientists claim are always in motion and progressively changing. But we can look at our bodies and tell that as we age, we are in a process of decay. Now, science is basically telling you something that can be proven by your own existence. And people still believe it. You know, there's no evidence of evolution or spontaneous creation today. It's just imaginative theory that we take on faith. Now, this world indoctrinates us into a religion of self-worship, materialism, and non-productive behavior to make merchandise of us. You know, and basically exploiting our needs to survive, to serve evil agendas. You know, this world makes sure it controls our food supply. It controls how we need shelter. It controls every aspect of our lives to the extent that we have to conform to what it does to survive. Now, it does not sound like Revelation 13, the mark of the beast. And no man shall be able to buy or sell lest he bear the mark of the beast in the image of his name. So we got to understand that this world is being proven not only by its beginning, by its makeup, but also by where it's headed. You know, all these evil agendas of us trusting this world is what leads to the destruction of the family, violence, drug abuse, sexual deviance, death, and lies that devalue people while increasing the value of things. See, now people don't care more about things than we do about people. But this has been a rather persistent indoctrination from since we were kids. You know, we're not taught to value each other. We're taught to value possessions. And this is the agenda. And now we live in a society where people will do anything to acquire these possessions. People will ignore wisdom. They will compromise values. They will do evil things to get something that will rot just like them. You know, the world is basically used to distract us, you know, keep us distracted, and basically keep us asleep, you know, to our created purpose. Blindly walking to our death with a smile, wasting our life and our limited time. You know, this world wants you asleep. They want you to believe that you're nothing. They don't want you to know that you're made in the image of an infinite, holy, powerful God that created all things. Because then you will understand you have infinite value, and the superficial material things that most people live for will seem as nothing, and therefore this world will not be able to control and exploit your mind and body by making your life about the pursuit of those possessions. And now we will understand how we are to interact with one another, knowing our purpose based on our Creator, and see the value in each other. And then we can actually reflect His character and His attributes here on earth, and actually reflect His love, His law, and His righteousness in ways where we have a thriving world and benefit. But see, people have rejected God, and now the world has become a wasteland. the world is only used for destruction. And now, evil has taken such a stronghold, and so people prefer evil over good. So now judgment has to come. God has to clean house. And we have to sound the warning, and we have to warn people who are ignoring the objective reality of what a world with a lack of values, a lack of God looks like. Everybody's complaining about the world, but people are not being honest that the world is in the condition it is today because people have rejected God. They have turned away from his commandments biblically, and they have turned to things, themselves, and in the fulfillment of their own sexual nature and lust. See, there's an agenda. If we increase the value of materials, we compromise values and merit to acquire these things. That's the mark of the beast. They give you all these pseudosciences. It's funny because I talk to people and they bring up carbon, radiometric dating, ice cores, and tree rings. And I tell them, all of these things are just things that they created their own standard on that you cannot go and test for yourselves because you have to use the standard they gave you that they can't tell you where they got from. Like, let's use carbon radiometric dating. It's not as complex as most people think. I'll give a simple metaphor or comparison to describe it. Let's think of a candle, a lit candle, right? Now, let's suppose we just determined that the candle at a certain length and is burning at a certain rate. Well, the length of the candle is basically any amount of time that we want to say that something existed for. We can make this up. So we said the candle is 14 inches, right? Let's say it burns at a rate of such and such millimeters per minute. So basically we have determined a length of time and a rate of decay, but it still doesn't tell us when it was lit. So we don't know the starting points of nothing. We're just creating time out of time, just like they create money from the Federal Reserve. They create money out of lies and IOUs. There's no actual real money. We don't have gold to back up our currency, but they just pump more fake currency. They pump more fake food, and as long as we have more fake food, people will go spend their money. It's a real psychological psych job going on here that we believe in. Ice cores, tree rings. Man, do you know they have trees? That the actual biblical flood would be the only disaster in our creation to explain how this can happen. They have giant trees that have been completely buried almost instantaneously and petrified under sediments of rocks that have compiled from huge erosion and flood events. Now, they will tell you that those sediments are millions and millions of years, but how does a tree perfectly upright exist, completely petrified and preserved like that? We've all observed a storm that knocked a tree down, but you mean to tell me one tree can survive millions and millions of years, slowly being covered up, completely preserved? When we see trees die every day with nothing touching them, they die just because of old age or fungus, or maybe the tree becomes crowded with ivy or something. But they want you to believe these things. They're telling you, they want you to believe their standards of measurement that they made up, because they have to make these things up and they have to create these institutions to declare of a point of authority so that you won't question authority. Basically, this is a test so we can. It shows us who we ultimately think the authority is, and if it's not God, then we're giving it to some man. So it's really crazy. It's crazy. I'm gonna end with this note. It's a guy named Kent Hovind, and he says an atheist can't find God for the same reason a thief can't find a policeman. And I'll add, a person can't see the truth for the same reason a blind man would reject a guide. See. A thief doesn't want a policeman because a thief is enjoying doing the evil it's doing. He doesn't want to come to correction and truth. And a blind man who will reject a guide wants to remain lost so that they continue to have no accountability for the obstacles and the walls that they run into. See, in blindness, you can complain without seeking a solution. So I'll just leave it there. Peace out.